No one expected them to survive even a week, let alone 40 days. When the search helicopters first circled above the jagged mountain range, most people watching the news had already assumed the worst. The mountain was old, massive, and unforgiving, with layers of rock carved by time and storms, hiding countless caves that few humans had ever entered. Yet deep inside one of those caves, cut off from the world, 5 people were fighting time, hunger, fear, and their own minds trying to stay alive. It began as a simple expedition. A group of experienced hikers, 2 men and 3 women, all in their late 20s to early 40s, set out to explore a remote mountain region known for its dramatic cliffs and hidden cave systems. They weren't reckless beginners. They had planned for 10 days, carried food, water filters, climbing equipment, and satellite communication devices. But nature doesn't care about preparation when it decides to change the rules. On the 4th day, a sudden storm rolled in faster than forecasted. The temperature dropped sharply, rain turned into sleet, and the narrow paths they were following became rivers of mud and loose rock. As they searched for shelter, they noticed the cave entrance. It was partially hidden behind hanging moss and broken stone, wide enough to enter but narrow enough to feel safe from wind. The decision was made quickly. They would wait out the storm inside and continue their journey once conditions improved. None of them knew that this cave would become their world for the next 40 days. The storm lasted longer than expected. By the 2nd day inside the cave, the rain outside had turned into heavy snowfall. The entrance partially collapsed due to falling rocks, loosened by the freezing temperatures. What had been an open exit was now a narrow gap barely wide enough for air to pass through. When they tried to move the rocks, they realized the truth. They were trapped. At first, panic tried to take control. One of them shouted, another cried, and silence filled the cave as reality settled in. The cave was deeper than they thought, stretching into darkness with multiple chambers. They had headlamps, but batteries wouldn't last forever. The air was cold and damp, and the walls constantly dripped with water. Their supplies were limited. 10 days of food for 5 people suddenly had to stretch into an unknown amount of time. They decided to ration immediately. Meals were reduced to a few bites each day. Energy bars were split into tiny portions. Water was collected by placing containers under dripping rocks and filtering it carefully. Hunger became a constant companion, gnawing at their stomachs and clouding their thoughts. Sleep was difficult. The cave never truly felt silent. Wind howled faintly through cracks, water echoed from deep within, and the darkness felt heavy, like it was pressing down on them. Days blended together. Without sunlight, their sense of time faded. They marked days by scratching lines into the cave wall whenever they believed 24 hours had passed. Sometimes they argued about whether a day had actually ended. Fatigue made tempers short. Small disagreements felt huge. One person blamed another for choosing the cave. Another accused someone of eating more than their share. But each time things escalated, they remembered one thing. Fighting wouldn't save them. Cooperation might. As their food supply dwindled, they searched deeper into the cave. They found strange rock formations, narrow tunnels, and one chamber where bats clung to the ceiling. The sight terrified them at first, but then it sparked an idea. The bats meant life. Life meant possibility. They didn't hunt the bats immediately. The moral weight of it was heavy. But after days of near starvation, survival became the priority. Using improvised tools and careful planning, they managed to catch a few. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't something they ever imagined doing, but it provided protein and a small boost of strength. The cold became another enemy. Their bodies weakened as fat reserves disappeared. They huddled together to conserve warmth, using backpacks and spare clothing as insulation. Fingers went numb, lips cracked. One of them developed a persistent cough. Another suffered from dizziness and fainting spells. Every symptom brought fear of infection, fear of injury, fear that one of them wouldn't make it. Psychological strain was just as dangerous. Hallucinations began. One woman claimed she heard voices calling her name from deep inside the cave. One man swore he saw sunlight in a tunnel that led only to solid rock. The darkness played tricks on their minds, turning hope into illusion and silence into sound. To stay sane, they talked constantly. They told stories about their childhoods, about favorite meals, about places they wanted to visit. They made promises about what they would do if they survived. These conversations became their lifeline. Around what they believed was day 20, they heard something new, a distant vibration. At first, they thought it was another hallucination, but it came again, a low, rhythmic sound that didn't belong to the cave. Helicopters. They screamed, pounded rocks, and waved headlamps toward the entrance gap. Their voices echoed uselessly into the stone. The sound faded. Hope rose and crashed in the same moment. That night was the hardest. Knowing help was close but unreachable broke something inside them. They refused to give up. They began tapping on rocks at regular intervals, hoping sound might travel. They created a routine. Wake, collect water, search for airflow, conserve energy, sleep. Routine gave them purpose. Purpose kept despair away. One of them kept a mental journal, memorizing every detail so the world would know what happened if they didn't survive. By day 30, their bodies were visibly deteriorating, cheeks hollowed, eyes sunken, movements slow and deliberate. Even speaking required effort. Yet something remarkable happened. Instead of turning against each other, they grew closer. They shared every thought, every fear, every ounce of strength. Survival was no longer individual, it was collective. Then on what they believed was day 37, they heard it again. Louder this time. Not helicopters, but metallic impacts. Controlled. Intentional. Rescue teams had detected unusual thermal patterns on the mountain and faint sound signals picked up by specialized equipment. They had narrowed it down. The cave was one of hundreds, but now it had their attention. The trapped group responded with everything they had left. They banged rocks, shouted until their throats burned, and flashed lights through the gap. Hours passed, then a voice echoed back. A real voice. Human. Clear. Strong. They collapsed, crying, laughing, barely able to believe it. The rescue wasn't immediate. The cave structure was unstable. Removing rocks too quickly could cause a collapse. Carefully, slowly, inch by inch, the opening was widened. Fresh air rushed in. Sunlight pierced the darkness for the first time in over a month. Some of them shielded their eyes, overwhelmed by the brightness. One of them whispered that it felt like being reborn. On day 40, they were pulled out one by one. Weak, underweight, dehydrated, but alive. Cameras captured the moment, but no footage could fully show what they had endured. They were rushed to hospitals, where doctors were stunned by their survival. Recovery took months, both physically and mentally. Even years later, they would say the same thing. The cave never truly left them. The darkness, the silence, the hunger, the fear, it followed them into dreams. But so did something else, a reminder of human resilience, of cooperation, of the will to live when logic says survival is impossible. They entered that mountain as explorers. They came out as survivors of something far greater than nature itself. And somewhere deep inside that mountain, the scratches on the wall still remain, counting the days when 5 people refused to let the darkness win.